So back on the Winton from the year 1900. This time it's the oiling system. Really glad the gearbox is out of the way and we can move on to one of the most important systems on the car. Now, as you can expect, it's a bit different to a modern car. With a modern car, the oil recirculates, it goes through a filter and then it goes through the bearings and things, then gets pumped back up again through a filter, back through the bearings again, and it keeps circulating. On this, it's a total loss oiling system. So you put oil in the top, comes out the bottom. Hopefully not that quick, hopefully it goes a bit more gradually than that so that we can actually get some degree through the day without topping it up. But it's, yeah, they didn't catch the oil and reuse it, they just kept pushing it through. So let's dive in and have a look. This is the main point, the central hub, if you like, of lubrication. We're under the passenger seat here, so we've got the flywheel, we've got the crank here, the bottom of the piston, and we've got this nice little brass box. If I open that up, we've got all these sections here with wool, what they call wool waste in there, because it used to be a waste product of the wool industry, and this one with a couple of wicks. Now, at the bottom of each of these sections, there's a tube. So the idea is that the wool gets soaked with oil and then gradually drips it down the tube. Similar here really with the wicks. They wick the oil up from this little reservoir and drop it down the tubes. I think that this drops the oil faster than the wool waste does. I think that's the difference between the two. But I'm certainly not going to be changing these systems now. What I need to do here is just to pull out all the old oil and put new oil in. But I also want to make sure that the oil's reaching where it should get. So I might squirt some oil down the tubes and just check it comes out in the relevant places on the other side. It's going to be very hard to tell with some of them because they just go into bearings. So unless I can get it oozing out, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to be able to tell. But I'll have a go. The easiest way to get the oil out of here is just with a syringe. Just pop it in and suck it up. You can see it's fairly gloopy. Looking at one of the wool waste sections, if I pull it out, you can see the wool is a bit grimy, but it's not too bad. It's very dry. Now, one thing with modern oils is that they contain detergents. The detergents are great when you've got oil filters in a recirculating system, but in this system, if any dirt is lifted off the wool here, it's just going to take it down the pipe, but really you want the dirt caught in the wool. So I'm going to be using some vintage oil in this, just some single grade oil, but it doesn't contain detergents, so the dirt should stay where it's put rather than moving around the system. Now I've taken that wool waste out, you can see the little hole down the bottom that attaches to a pipe that then goes off to a bearing. All the little sections here are the same. I need to work out if these tubes are clear, if the oil can flow freely. So I'm just going to remove the wool wadding from a section, put enough oil in to cover the hole at the bottom, so this way it's not going to be drip fed down the tube, it should just flow. And if I can look to see where it's coming out, I should know it's doing the job. In this case, it's just dripping out the bottom, but I can see it's not leaking out of anywhere it shouldn't. It's just sort of coming from the bearing area, so I think that's clear. And this one, you can just see it dripping down there. That's in the area of the exhaust valve cam. So that's where that oil's supposed to be going to. It's not quite on the cam lobes. So I've managed to move that pipe slightly and now it's actually dripping oil onto the cam movement. It can throw it around wherever it likes from there, but at least that cam is nicely lubricated now. So now I can get rid of all this old wool. And gauze. Get some new. Now, handily, in 2026, wool is still available, but you get a lot of it. So I think I'm sorted for the next 126 years. Don't want to pack this in too tightly, but I want to make sure there's enough to act as a good sponge and last a good while. Now you can see there is some little bits of dirt in this wool even though it's been washed, so that's an ideal example for why I don't want to use an oil with a detergent in it. This final compartment, the tubes go really near the top of the box, and that's because this one uses wicks. Here's an old wick. So just normal oil lamp cotton wicks. We're all very eco here, using cotton and wool. And it just draws the oil up and then puts it down the tubes. There's 2 of those. I've got some new cotton wick, and this will just replace those old ones. But they do say leave the wicks out while the vehicle's parked and just pop them in when you're going to be running. So obviously that's just so you don't siphon out all the oil when you're not going anywhere. So I've just got to, might do the wicks slightly longer than the originals, just to give it a bit more of a hook so it doesn't fall out while we're trundling along. But yeah, quite easy. Back in the engine bay, there's this big pot here. This contains the oil for the main cylinder lubrication. There's quite a lot of oil in here because it's meant to last for a day's motoring. Quite how far that is, I don't know, but having to use a tube to get into the oil because there is a shaft in the middle that seems to be some sort of adjustment for the flow. And that's actually quite a dark, gloopy colour, which isn't brilliant. That is most definitely better out than in. There are lots of places that need oiling. I'm just being really generous with that at the moment. There's a couple of spots on the top of the engine here to lubricate. This one drops down onto the inlet valve, possibly the exhaust valve. It says just to put a few drops in here. With the others, I'm going to put a little bit more, and there's a little valve because this is going into the pressurised section for the engine control. It's disappeared in there nicely. And I'll just turn the engine over a couple of times just to make sure that's all going through. Another place to grease up is the top of the water pump here. Now I'm going to use a water resistant grease in here, that's similar to what's used in boat prop shafts and that sort of thing, because I bet these are going to be plain bearings and some water will get through, and rather than emulsifying the grease, then I'll put some water resistant stuff in. I'm going to fill up the little cup here with the grease, possibly a bit too much there. See if I can get it in. That's full. And I'm also going to fill up the cap, because the idea is that you can screw down the cap and push more and more grease in. So it saves having a tub with you, tub and screwdriver and pair of gloves and all sorts of things to feed it with more grease. Once it's run a little, you can give this little cap a tweak and that will push as much grease as it can inside the bearing, and you can carry on your merry way. It's quite a clever system, but it's something I think that came from horse carts. The axle has got little oil caps on it, 2 on each side, quite a thread on them. But in here I'm putting in a thicker oil, a gearbox oil, and because this is horizontal I just need to do it with a higher pressure pump and hope that I can see it coming out somewhere. The differential has got a little inspection hatch, and you can see on each planet gear there's a little hole. Squeeze some oil in, and quite quickly that's coming out the top. So I can do the same to the one at the top. And out by the wheel on each side there's another little cap, but this one's nice and shiny. The front doesn't have a big axle, but on the front hubs in the middle of the wheels they've got these little things where you twist this out to collet and it reveals a little oil hole, so I can get some in there. It's great to get that done. Some of the oil was really smelly and sticky and horrible, so it's great that we've now got fresh oil all the way through the system. And to be honest, over most of the workshop floor it's looking all a bit oil tankery down there, so I think I've got some cleaning to do when I finally move this thing out to the workshop. Next step is the electrics, so like and subscribe and follow for more.